An unexpected proposal. Commander Sarah Chen never expected her first alien diplomatic mission to start with a marriage proposal. Yet here she was, standing in the crystalline meeting chamber of the Caraxian High Council, trying to keep her jaw from dropping as Supreme Matriarch Farah finished her extraordinary speech. Therefore, to seal the alliance between our species, you, Commander Chen, will make my son, Prince Zarek. The tall, silvery-skinned alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, as if she'd just proposed something as mundane as sharing a meal. Sarah fought to maintain her diplomatic composure, grateful for her years of military training. The chamber's violet lighting did nothing to hide her flushed cheeks as she processed the absurd situation. Around her, the assembled council members, all female, nodded in apparent approval. "Your Excellency," Sarah began carefully, "while I'm deeply honored by your proposal, I'm afraid there may be some cultural misunderstanding here. I'm here to negotiate a trade agreement, not a personal arrangement." Farah's head tilted at an angle that would have been impossible for a human neck. Is this not how humans forge their strongest alliances? Through the joining of important bloodlines? Not exactly. Sarah resisted the urge to loosen her dress uniform's collar. In fact, arranged marriages haven't been common on Earth for centuries. A murmur of surprise rippled through the council chamber. The Axaraxians communicated through both verbal and chemical signals, and Sarah's environmental suit sensors detected a spike in pheromone activity. Fascinating. Farah leaned forward on her crystalline throne. "You mean your species allows individuals to choose their mates based on emotion?" The way she said emotion made it sound like a mild disease. Sarah nodded. "Yes, we believe compatibility and mutual attraction are important factors in forming lasting bonds." "How inefficient," one council member muttered, releasing a cloud of disapproving pheromones. Farah raised a hand for silence. "Perhaps we can reach a compromise. Meet my son. If you find him compatible, we can proceed with the alliance. If not," she left the consequence unspoken. Before Sarah could protest, a side door opened. Prince Zarek entered, and Sarah's carefully prepared diplomatic responses fled her mind. Unlike the silvery skin of the females, his was a swirling pattern of blues and greens that seemed to shift with each movement. He was tall, even for a Xaraxian, with delicate features that somehow managed to appear both alien and handsome. Commander Chen. His voice was deeper than she expected, with a musical quality that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "I apologize for my mother's directness. We Xaraxians sometimes forget that other species have different customs." Sarah found herself smiling despite the awkward situation. "No apology necessary, Your Highness. Cultural misunderstandings are part of the job. Please call me Zarek." He moved closer, and Sarah's suit sensors went crazy with new pheromone readings. "Perhaps we could discuss our different customs over a tour of the botanical gardens. They contain specimens from across the galaxy." Sarah glanced at Cathara, who was watching their interaction with intense interest. The success of this mission, humanity's first chance at joining the Galactic Alliance, might well depend on how she handled this situation. And if she was being honest with herself, she was curious about the prince. "I'd like that," she said finally. "As a scientific and cultural exchange, of course." Of course, Zarek agreed, his skin patterns shifting to include flecks of gold that her suit identified as indicating amusement. As they left the chamber together, Sarah could hear Cathara addressing the council. "See, they're already displaying signs of compatibility. The pheromone readings are most promising." Sarah made a mental note to have a serious discussion with her superiors about including potential alien marriage proposals in future diplomatic briefings. She had a feeling this mission was about to become a lot more complicated than anyone had anticipated. Walking beside Zarek, watching his skin patterns create mesmerizing displays, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if that was entirely a bad thing. After all, isn't this what space exploration was about? Making unexpected discoveries, bridging cultural divides, finding connection in the most unlikely places. She just hoped Earth's diplomatic corps had a protocol for this situation. Somehow, she doubted dating 101, Saraxian edition, was part of the standard training manual. Your skin patterns, she found herself saying, they're beautiful. Do they always change like that? Zarek's patterns swirled with new colors she hadn't seen before. They reflect our emotional state. Right now, he paused, seeming almost shy. Right now they're saying I'm very glad my mother's unconventional approach didn't frighten you away. Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that echoed through the crystalline corridors. Trust me, you're high, Zarek. It takes more than an unexpected marriage proposal to frighten a human diplomat. We're a pretty adaptable species. So I'm beginning to see, he replied, his skin now shimmering with patterns that her suit couldn't quite analyze. Perhaps we can teach each other about our customs, starting with why humans place so much emphasis on this thing called dating. As they entered the botanical gardens, surrounded by exotic alien flora, Sarah realized this mission might end up advancing human-alien relations in ways no one had anticipated. Sometimes the best diplomatic breakthroughs came from the heart, even if that heart belonged to a color-changing alien prince. Culture clash and chemistry. The Ataraxian botanical gardens were unlike anything Sarah had seen in her years of space travel. Floating orbs of water contained luminescent plants that pulsed in rainbow hues, while crystalline trees chimed softly in the artificial breeze. But it wasn't the alien flora that kept drawing her attention. It was Zarek's constantly shifting skin patterns. You keep watching my chromatic responses, he noted, his tone curious rather than accusatory. Does it make you uncomfortable? Quite the opposite, Sarah admitted, adjusting her environmental suit settings to better analyze the patterns. On Earth, we have animals that change color, but nothing quite like this. It's fascinating and beautiful. Zarek's skin rippled with waves of gold and purple. You're very direct with your compliments. Most Saraxian females would never express such emotional observations. Is that why your mother wants you to mate with an alien? Because Araxian females are too reserved. The question slipped out before Sarah's diplomatic training could stop it. To her surprise, Zarek laughed, a melodious sound that made the crystalline trees resonate in harmony. Perceptive. Yes, our society has become increasingly structured, controlled. Male Saraxians express emotions through our chromatic displays, but females have evolved to suppress such displays. They see it as a sign of weakness. Sarah frowned. That sounds lonely. It can be. Zarek led her to a viewing platform overlooking a valley of swaying bioluminescent flowers. My mother believes introducing new genetic material and new cultural perspectives might help our species regain what we've lost. So I'm not just a potential mate, I'm a social experiment. Sarah tried to keep the edge out of her voice. Zarek's skin darkened to deep blues and greens. I apologize if that's how it seems. The truth is, he paused, his patterns swirling in what her suit identified as anxiety. I requested this meeting. You what? I studied humans since we first made contact. Your species fascinates me. Your adaptability, your emotional depth, your ability to form connections across cultural and physical boundaries. When I heard Earth was sending a diplomat, his skin flushed with patterns her suit couldn't interpret. Sarah's diplomatic training warred with her growing personal interest. Zarek, unflattered, but you don't even know me. But I'd like to. His skin patterns stabilized into a gentle, swirling pattern. Not because of politics or genetics, but because you're the first person I've met who looks at my emotional displays with wonder instead of disapproval. Before Sarah could respond, her suit's alarm chimed. Environmental filters at 60% capacity, the AI announced. Replacement recommended within the next hour. Ah, yes. Zarek's patterns shifted to something more formal. I forgot about your biological needs. The atmospheric composition here isn't ideal for humans. It's fine, Sarah assured him. I just need to return to my quarters to change filters. Part of the joy of interspecies diplomacy, lots of equipment maintenance. Allow me to escort you. Zarek offered his arm in a surprisingly human gesture. We can continue our cultural exchange along the way. I'm particularly curious about this human concept of dating. Your information networks suggest it involves sharing nutrient intake while engaging in personal dialogue. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. You mean dinner and conversation? That's part of it, yes. Though I'm not sure how that would work with our different biological needs. We are an advanced civilization, Commander Chen. I'm sure we can devise a solution. His skin sparkled with what she was beginning to recognize as enthusiasm. Perhaps we could start with a shared viewing of your solar system's primary star setting. The observation deck offers a spectacular view through specially filtered windows. Are you asking me on a date, Your Highness? Is that the correct protocol? I study human courtship rituals, but practical application is challenging. Sarah knew she should maintain professional distance. This was supposed to be a standard diplomatic mission, not an interspecies dating adventure. But there was something endearing about Zarek's earnest attempts to bridge their cultural gap. Sunset viewing sounds lovely, she found herself saying. After I change my filters, of course. Of course, his skin rippled with joy. And perhaps you could teach me more about human expressions of emotion. We have much to learn from each other. As they walked through the crystalline corridors, Sarah realized she was genuinely looking forward to their sunset date. Sure, her mission brief hadn't covered romantic encounters with alien princes, but then again, humanity's greatest achievements often came from embracing the unexpected. They reached her quarters just as her suit's filters hit 45% capacity. "Thank you for the tour," she said, pausing at her door, "and for your honesty about requesting the meeting." "Thank you for not running away when my mother suggested immediate mating," Zarek replied, his skin shimmering with what her suit now identified as humor. "I look forward to our sunset observation." Watching him leave, his skin patterns a mesmerizing dance of blues and golds, Sarah wondered what her superiors would make of this development. Then again, wasn't fostering understanding between species exactly what diplomacy was about? Even if that understanding started with an awkward marriage proposal and led to an alien sunset date. She just hoped her next report to Earth wouldn't cause too many diplomatic headaches. "Dear Command, good news and bad news. Bad news, no trade agreement yet. Good news, potential first human Tyrexian courtship in progress. Please advise. Political ways." The sunset viewing never happened. Instead, Sarah found herself rushed into an emergency council meeting, still adjusting her fresh environmental suit filters. The chamber's atmosphere was tense, filled with agitated Cyraxian pheromones that her suit's sensors struggled to analyze. "Unacceptable." Councillor Varex's voice cut through the chamber. "The human shows far too much emotional influence over the prince. Did you see his chromatic displays in the garden? Such unbridled expression is beneath his station." Supreme Matriarch Kfara raised a hand for silence, her 4 eyes fixed on Sarah. "Commander Chen, it seems we have a situation. News of your interaction with Prince Zarek has sparked a debate among our people. Some find your influence concerning." "My influence?" Sarah kept her voice steady, though her heart raced. "All we did was tour the gardens and talk." "Precisely." Another counselor interjected. "Such casual interaction between potential mates is not our way. There are protocols, traditions." Sarah noticed Zarek standing at the chamber's edge, his skin patterns a turbulent mix of dark colors she hadn't seen before. Their eyes met briefly before he looked away, his patterns darkening further. With respect, Sarah addressed Kfara directly. "Isn't this exactly why you proposed the match? To introduce new perspectives to your society?" "Yes, but..." Kfara's response was cut off by the chamber's emergency alert system. Red lights pulsed as a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. Matriarch. A Cyraxian military commander appeared in the projection. "We're detecting multiple ships entering the system. They're Drachnid vessels, heavily armed. The chamber erupted in chaos. Sarah's blood ran cold. She'd been briefed about the Drachnids, a warlike species that had been pressuring the Caraxians for years. Their timing couldn't be worse. "How many ships?" Thara demanded. 7 battlecruisers, matriarch. They're demanding immediate surrender of the outer colonies, and they're specifically requesting the presence of the human diplomat. All eyes turned to Sarah. She straightened her spine, mind racing. They must have intercepted communications about the potential alliance. They're trying to prevent Earth from joining the galactic community. "We should surrender her," Varexa suggested quickly. "Preserve our people." "No." Zarek's voice rang out, his skin blazing with intense patterns that made several counselors gasp. "We cannot betray our guest. It goes against everything we stand for." Cathara studied her son and Sarah. "The prince is correct, but our defensive capabilities are limited. The Drachnids chose their moment well. Most of our fleet is deployed protecting trade routes." Sarah stepped forward. "Your Excellency, I have an idea, but it's unconventional. It will require trusting human intuition and Caraxian technology working together." "Absolutely not," Varexa protested. "We cannot entrust our defense to alien emotions and impulses." "Mother," Zavik moved to stand beside Sarah, his skin patterns aligning with hers in a way that made the counselors murmur. "Commander Chen's species has survived countless conflicts. They understand warfare in ways we don't. Let her help." Cathara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Explain your plan, Commander." Sarah nodded, pulling up data on her suit's projector. The Drachnids rely on highly regimented attack patterns. It's built into their psychology. They expect the same from their opponents. But human military history is full of examples where unconventional tactics defeated superior forces. She detailed her plan quickly, a combination of Caraxian technology and human unpredictability that made several counselors shift uncomfortably in their seats. But as she spoke, she noticed Zarek's skin patterns beginning to mirror her excitement. "It's insane," Varexa declared. "Using our solar collection arrays as weapons, turning our defensive shields into offensive tools. It defies all military doctrine." "Exactly," Sarah smiled. "That's why it will work. The Drachnids won't expect it because it's not logical by their standards. Sometimes the best defense is doing the unexpected." Cathara was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "Implement the humans' plan. And Commander Chen, should we survive this, perhaps we have been too hasty in judging the value of human emotions and instincts." As the chamber burst into activity, Zarek touched Sarah's arm gently. "Your species continues to surprise us, using solar collectors as cosmic mirrors to blind their targeting systems, converting shield harmonics into disruptive pulses. It's brilliant." "Sometimes the best solutions come from thinking outside the traditional box," Sarah replied, trying not to be distracted by the way his skin patterns seemed to dance with admiration. "Though I have to admit, I've never had to plan battle strategy in the middle of a diplomatic courtship before." Zarek's patterns shifted to include hints of gold, humor, she'd learned. Humans truly do everything differently, don't they? Including combining romance and warfare. "Speaking of romance," Sarah raised an eyebrow, "I believe we still have a sunset to watch. Assuming we survive the next few hours." "I look forward to it," Zarek replied, his skin now showing patterns she recognized as determination mixed with hope. "Though perhaps we should focus on defeating the Drachnids first." As they rushed to implement her plan, Sarah couldn't help but think that this was definitely not covered in her diplomatic training. Then again, maybe this was exactly what Earth's alliance with the Axaraxians needed, a crisis that proved how well their different approaches could work together. And if that crisis happened to bring her closer to a certain color-changing prince, well, that was just an unexpected diplomatic bonus. Crisis point. Sarah stood in the Caraxian command center, watching as her unconventional plan unfolded across the holographic displays. The massive solar collectors, usually used to power the city, pivoted in perfect synchronization, their polished surfaces reflecting concentrated starlight directly at the approaching Drachnid fleet. Energy pulse ready in 3, 2, 1. Exorexian technician announced. The command center erupted in gasps as the first wave of reflected energy struck the lead Drachnid ships. Their shields flickered and distorted, unprepared for an attack that wasn't even supposed to be a weapon. Direct hit. Zarlik's skin rippled with excitement. Their forward shields are destabilizing exactly as you predicted, Sarah. Don't celebrate yet, Sarah cautioned, though she couldn't help smiling at his enthusiasm. The Drachnids aren't known for giving up easily. Verexa, are the shield harmonics ready? The counselor, who had been watching Sarah with growing respect, nodded reluctantly. Yes, though I still think converting defensive systems into weapons is highly irregular. Irregular is exactly what we need right now, Sarah replied, studying the enemy formations. Look at how they're regrouping. Perfect geometric patterns, completely predictable. That's their weakness. Cathara, who had insisted on personally overseeing the defense, moved closer to observe. The human is correct. The Drachnid's greatest strength, their rigid discipline, becomes their vulnerability when faced with unexpected tactics. Suddenly, the command center's communication system crackled to life. A harsh, reptilian face appeared on the main screen. This is War Leader Kex of the Drachnid Empire. Your primitive tricks will not save you. Surrender the human diplomat and your outer colonies, or face annihilation. Sarah stepped forward before anyone could stop her. This is Commander Chen. Your tactics are as outdated as your threats, War Leader. Perhaps you'd like to reconsider your position while you still have a fleet. The Drachnid scales bristled with anger. You dare mock the might of the Empire. We will. Now, Sarah commanded. The modified shield generators pulsed, sending waves of disrupting energy through space. The Drachnid ships, their formations too perfect and predictable, caught the full brunt of the attack. Their shields collapsed in a cascade of failure, their rigid battle computer systems unable to adapt to the chaotic energy patterns. Impossible. War Leader Kex roared as his ship's systems began to fail. This defies all combat protocols. That's the point, Sarah replied calmly. Sometimes the best move in battle is the one that nobody expects, especially from a primitive species. As the Drachnid fleet struggled to recover, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos, Sarah turned to Cathara. Your Excellency, I suggest offering them a chance to retreat. It will be less humiliating for them than surrender, and they'll be more likely to accept. The Supreme Matriarch's 4 eyes blinked in approval. Wise counsel, Commander. You understand the importance of saving face, even in victory. She turned to the screen. War Leader Kex, we offer you the opportunity to withdraw and reassess your strategy. Perhaps in the future, we can discuss our differences through diplomacy rather than conflict. The Drachnid leader's scales changed color in what Sarah assumed was embarrassment or rage, possibly both. Without another word, he cut the transmission. Moments later, the damaged Drachnid fleet began retreating. The command center erupted in celebration. Zarik's skin blazed with patterns so bright they almost hurt to look at. Brilliant, he exclaimed, forgetting protocol and pulling Sarah into an embrace. Simply brilliant. To Sarah's surprise, none of the counselors objected to this display of emotion. Even Verexa seemed too impressed by the victory to complain about proper behavior. Commander Chen, Cathara's voice cut through the celebration. It seems we owe you a debt of gratitude. You have proven that human intuition and emotional thinking, when properly applied, can be a powerful force. Thank you, Your Excellency, Sarah replied diplomatically. Though I think what we really proved is how effective our species can be when we work together. Caraxian technology and human creativity made a formidable combination. Indeed, Cathara's expression softened, or at least Sarah thought it did. Caraxian facial expressions were still challenging to read. Perhaps this is why the universe brought our species together. Each has what the other needs. Sarah felt Zarek's hand slip into hers, his skin patterns forming designs she'd never seen before. Her suit's sensors were going crazy trying to analyze them. "Mother," Zarek spoke, his voice firm despite his swirling skin patterns. "I believe Commander Chen, and I still have a sunset viewing to attend. With your permission?" Kathara looked between them, her four eyes taking in their joined hands and Zarek's unprecedented skin patterns. "Yes, I believe you do. After all, if today has taught us anything, it's that sometimes breaking with tradition yields unexpected benefits." As they left the command center together, Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "You know, when I woke up this morning, I didn't expect to end my day defending a planet and going on a date with an alien prince. And I didn't expect to fall in love with a human who turns solar collectors into weapons," Zarek replied, his skin patterns forming what she now recognized as affection. "Life is full of surprises." Sarah stopped walking, her heart skipping a beat. "Love, is that what those new patterns mean? The ones my suit can't analyze?" Zarek's patterns shifted to include swirls of gold, embarrassment mixed with joy. "Yes, they're patterns no Xaraxian has displayed in generations, patterns of pure, unrestrained emotion." As they reached the observation deck, the twin suns of Xaraxia were just beginning to set, painting the sky in colors that rivaled Zarek's skin patterns. Sarah realized that maybe this was what space exploration was really about, not just finding new worlds, but finding new ways to connect, to feel, to love. "So," she said, squeezing his hand, "about that cultural exchange we were discussing, breaking traditions, the news of the successful defense against the Drachnids spread quickly through the Xaraxian capital. But what really got people talking was the unprecedented sight of Prince Zarek walking openly with Commander Chen, his skin displaying patterns that hadn't been seen in their society for generations." "They're staring again," Sarah murmured as they walked through the crystalline gardens, now repaired after the battle. Despite the victory celebration happening in the city below, they'd chosen a quiet moment alone. "Let them," Zarek replied, his skin rippling with defiant joy. "For too long, our society has suppressed emotion, treating it like a weakness. You've helped prove it can be a strength." Before Sarah could respond, her suit's communicator chimed. "Priority message from Earth Command," the AI announced. Sarah sighed. "I should take this," probably wondering why their diplomatic mission turned into a military operation. The holographic figure of Admiral Torres materialized before them. "Commander Chen, your report about the Drachnid incident is interesting." The Admiral's eyes flickered to Zarek. "As are the rumors about your personal involvement with the Xaraxian prince." "Admiral," Sarah straightened, automatically shifting into military posture. "I can explain." "No need," Torres interrupted, surprising her. "The Galactic Council is impressed. Not only did you prevent a war, but you've also managed to forge exactly the kind of deep cultural connection we hoped for with the Xaraxians." A slight smile crossed his face. "Though I admit, a royal romance wasn't quite what we had in mind." "Sir, about that." Sarah glanced at Zarek, whose skin patterns showed intense interest in the conversation. "Things here are complicated." "When aren't they?" Torres chuckled. "Look, Chen, you've done good work, but there's something you need to know. The Drachnids have filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. They're claiming our primitive emotional tactics violated traditional combat protocols." Zarek stepped forward, his patterns shifting to show concern. "Admiral, surely they can't." "Oh, it gets better," Torres continued. "They're demanding Commander Chen be handed over for rehabilitation to prevent the spread of human emotional warfare techniques." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "They can't be serious." "Unfortunately, they are, and some of the more traditional council members are considering their argument. They're worried about the implications of combining human unpredictability with advanced alien technology." "This is absurd." Zarek's skin blazed with patterns so intense that the hologram flickered. Sarah saved our world. She showed us a better way to. A new voice cut through the garden. She showed us exactly why the old ways exist. Councillor Varexa emerged from the shadows, followed by several guards. I apologize, Your Highness, but this has gone far enough. Varexa, Sarah turned to face the councillor. What are you doing? Protecting our society. Varex's voice was cold. The Drachnids are right. Your influence is too destabilizing. Look what you've done to the prince, displaying emotions like a common worker, forgetting his station. We cannot allow this to continue. Stand down, councillor, Zarek commanded, moving to stand between Sarah and the guards. You have no authority here. Actually, Varexa produced a crystal document. I do. The council has voted. Commander Chen is to be detained pending her transfer to the Drachnids for rehabilitation. It's for the greater good. The greater good. Sarah couldn't keep the anger from her voice. You mean maintaining your comfortable, emotionless status quo, even after seeing how effective combining our different approaches can be? Effectiveness is not everything, Varexa replied. Order must be maintained. No. The word rang through the garden with unexpected force. Supreme Matriarch Cathara emerged from another path, her presence commanding immediate attention. Order must evolve, or it becomes stagnation. Your Excellency, Varexa bowed deeply. The council has voted. The council does not speak for the crown. Cathara cut her off. And I have seen enough to know that Commander Chen's influence, while disruptive, is exactly what our people need. Sarah felt Zarek's hand slip into hers, his skin patterns mixing joy with relief. The touch sent a subtle vibration through her suit, something new, something her senses couldn't quite analyze. Mother. Zarek's voice held a note of wonder. Yes, my son. I feel it too. Vaura turned to Varexa. The human's presence has awakened something we thought lost. Our ability to form deep emotional bonds is returning. Even I can sense it now. Varexa stepped back, clearly shocked. But the Drachnids can file all the complaints they wish, Cathara declared. Commander Chen is under royal protection. More than that, she has proven herself a true ally to our people. The marriage proposal stands, not as a political arrangement, but as recognition of a genuine bond. Admiral Taurus, who had been watching silently, cleared his throat. Well, Commander Chen, it seems you've managed to turn a diplomatic mission into both a military victory and a royal wedding. I look forward to reading that report. As the hologram faded, Sarah turned to Zarek. A wedding? Isn't that moving a bit fast? His skin patterns formed complex swirls of gold and blue, humor mixed with deep affection. By Xaraxian standards, we've been practically dawdling. Besides, didn't you humans have something called whirlwind romances? True, Sarah laughed. Though I doubt any of them involved alien princes and interstellar incidents. Cathara watched their interaction with all four eyes, her expression softening. Perhaps this is what both our species needed. A reminder that progress comes not from rigid adherence to tradition, but from the courage to embrace change. As the garden's crystals chimed softly in the evening breeze, Sarah realized that her mission had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations. She'd come to forge an alliance between worlds and had instead helped forge something far more powerful, a bridge between hearts and cultures that would change both societies forever. So, she squeezed Zarek's hand, grinning. About that sunset we keep getting interrupted from watching, breaking barriers. The preparations for what the galactic media was calling the Unity Wedding had thrown the Xaraxian capital into beautiful chaos. Traditional crystalline decorations merged with Earth customs in ways that made both species pause and smile. Sarah stood at her chamber window, watching workers arrange floating light displays that somehow managed to incorporate both human and Xaraxian symbolic patterns. Your dress is ready, Commander, announced Lieutenant Park, her assistant who'd arrived with the Earth delegation, though I still don't understand how they managed to modify it for your environmental suit. Xaraxian tech combined with human creativity, Sarah replied, touching the transparent material that would allow Zarek's skin patterns to interact with her dress. It's becoming a theme around here. A soft chime announced another visitor. Supreme Matriarch Cathara entered, her formal robes shimmering with embedded crystals that pulsed in time with her movements. For the first time, Sarah noticed subtle color changes in the matriarch's traditionally static skin. "You're displaying patterns," Sarah observed, unable to hide her surprise. Cathara's four eyes blinked in sequence, her version of a smile. "Yes, it seems my son is not the only one affected by your presence. Many of our females are reporting the return of chromatic abilities. Subtle, but growing stronger." "The geneticists must be having a field day," Sarah remarked. "Indeed. They believe the proximity to human emotional energy is reactivating dormant traits in our species." Cathara moved closer, her voice softening. "But I didn't come to discuss genetics. I brought you something." She produced a crystal pendant that seemed to capture and amplify light in impossible ways. "This has been passed down through our royal line for generations, waiting for a time when our people would remember how to truly feel again. I can think of no better bearer than the human who helped us rediscover our hearts." Sarah was speechless as Cathara placed the pendant around her neck. The crystal immediately began to pulse with colors that matched her emotional state: joy, nervousness, love. "It's connecting to your emotions through your suit's sensors," Cathara explained. "Now you too can display your feelings in our way." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the palace. Lieutenant Park rushed in, face flushed. "Commander, Drachnid ships have been detected entering the system, a lot of them." "Of course they crashed my wedding," Sarah muttered, already moving to action. "How many?" 15 battle cruisers," Cathara announced, checking a holographic display. "They're demanding we cancel the ceremony and hand you over, or they'll open fire." Sarah touched the crystal pendant, watching it pulse with determination. "They really don't learn, do they? Lieutenant, get me a secure channel to Admiral Torres. Your Excellency, I'll need access to those solar collectors again." "Already done," Cathara replied, her own skin showing surprising patterns of battle readiness. "And Sarah? Call me Mother." The next hour was a blur of activity. Sarah, still in her modified wedding dress, coordinated with Earth and Sarexian forces to set up a defense that would make the history books. This time, they were ready. "Drachnid fleet approaching weapons range," announced its Sarexian officer. "Their formation is different this time." Sarah studied the tactical display, noting how the enemy ships moved in unpredictable patterns. "They're trying to adapt to our tactics from last time. Clever, but," she smiled, "they're still thinking like Drachnids." "Meaning?" Cathara asked. "Meaning they're trying to be unpredictable in a predictable way. Look at their movement algorithms. They're still based on mathematical patterns, just more complex ones." Zalek burst into the command center, his formal wedding attire shimmering with worried patterns. "Sarah, I came as soon as I heard." Perfect timing, she grinned at her soon-to-be husband. "How do you feel about combining our wedding ceremony with a little tactical surprise for our uninvited guests?" His skin patterns shifted to show curiosity mixed with excitement. "What do you have in mind?" Sarah quickly outlined her plan. It was audacious, perhaps even crazy, but as she spoke, she saw understanding and appreciation dawn in both Zalek and Cathara's expressions. Using the wedding light display as a weapons platform, Cathara's voice held a note of admiration. The ceremonial crystal arrays could indeed be repurposed to amplify our defensive capabilities. "And the Drachnids would never expect us to turn a wedding ceremony into a battle strategy," Zarek added, his skin now showing patterns of fierce pride. "Exactly." Sarah touched her crystal pendant, watching it pulse with tactical inspiration. "Plus, I really don't want to postpone this wedding again." The plan came together quickly. As the Drachnid fleet approached, the capital city seemed to be proceeding with wedding preparations as planned. Thousands of floating crystals were arranged in complex patterns above the city, supposedly for the ceremony. The Drachnid war leader's face appeared on the main screen, scales bristling with contempt. Your pitiful attempt to proceed with this abomination of a ceremony will not. Oh, shut up, Sarah interrupted, standing proudly in her wedding dress, Zarek at her side. You're just jealous you weren't invited. But since you're here, she nodded to Cathara. The entire crystal array activated at once, each ceremonial light focusing and amplifying the city's defensive systems in ways the Drachnid's computers couldn't predict or counter. Their ships, prepared for traditional warfare, found themselves caught in a web of crystalline energy that disrupted their systems while forming a protective bubble around the city. Impossible, the war leader sputtered. You turned a wedding ceremony into a weapon. No, Sarah corrected him, taking Zarek's hand. We turned it into a shield. There's a difference. Now you have two choices: retreat and leave us in peace, or stay and witness the union of our peoples. Either way, this wedding is happening. The Drachnid leader's scales changed color rapidly as he processed this ultimatum. Finally he growled, "This isn't over, human." Actually, it is. Cathara stepped forward. The Galactic Council has just voted. Any further interference in Saraxian-human relations will be considered an act of war against both our peoples and our allies. Go home, war leader. Find someone else to bother. As the Drachnid fleet retreated, the crystal array transformed from a defense system back into wedding decorations. Sarah looked at Zarek, whose skin was displaying those unique patterns of love that had started appearing when they met. Well, she said, straightening her dress, shall we get married before someone else tries to crash the party? His response was to pull her into a kiss that made the crystal pendant at her throat pulse with colors so bright they rivaled the ceremonial displays. Around them, the assembled Tharaxians gasped, not in shock, but in wonder, as their own emotional displays began to strengthen in response. Cathara watched with all four eyes shining. And so begins a new chapter in both our histories, one where strength comes not from suppressing emotions, but from embracing them together. A new dawn. 1 year after what became known as the Crystal Wedding, Sarah stood in the royal nursery of the Xaraxian palace, watching her daughter sleep. Little Aurora's skin shifted between human tones and Xaraxian patterns even in her dreams, a living symbol of what was possible when two species came together in love. She's displaying new patterns again, Zarek observed, joining his wife. His own skin rippled with paternal pride. The geneticists are beside themselves with excitement. I bet they are, Sarah smiled, touching the crystal pendant that had become a permanent part of her environmental suit. It pulsed with maternal warmth. The first human Xaraxian child, breaking biological barriers they thought impossible. The nursery's crystal walls hummed softly, responding to Aurora's emotional energy. In the year since her birth, the child had become a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Her very existence challenged long-held beliefs about species compatibility and cultural integration. Ambassador Chen Zarek, her AI assistant, chimed softly. The delegation from Earth is arriving. Sarah straightened, checking her suit's settings out of habit. Right on schedule, ready to show your parents what their granddaughter can do. Admiral Torres led the Earth delegation, accompanied by a team of scientists and diplomats. They entered the nursery with barely contained excitement. Over the past year, reports of Aurora's unique abilities had sparked intense interest in human-Xaraxian relations. Excuse me, Ambassador, Torres corrected himself, smiling. Your daughter has certainly caused quite a stir back home. The medical community is fascinated by her ability to bridge our species' biological differences. That's not all she can do, Cathara announced, entering with her usual regal grace. But now her formerly static skin displayed clear emotional patterns, a change that had gradually spread throughout Xaraxian society. Show them. Sarah gently lifted Aurora from her crib. The baby's eyes opened, human in shape, but with the mesmerizing depth of Hyraxian eyes. She reached out toward the crystal walls, and suddenly the entire room came alive with pulsing colors that matched her emotional state. Extraordinary, one of the Earth's scientists breathed. She's interfacing directly with Hyraxian technology through pure emotional energy. More than that, Zarek said proudly, "Watch this." He moved to a control panel and activated a holographic display showing data from across the city. Everywhere, Aurora's emotional signature reached. Both humans and Hyraxians showed increased emotional synchronization and technological interaction. "She's a bridge," Sarah explained, "not just biologically, but spiritually. Her presence seems to strengthen the emotional capabilities of Hyraxians while helping humans interface with their technology. It's like she's teaching both of our species how to understand each other better." Torres shook his head in wonder. "When we sent you on that diplomatic mission 2 years ago, we hoped for a trade agreement. Instead, you've helped create something that's transforming both our societies." "Change doesn't always come in expected packages," Cathara observed, gently touching Aurora's cheek. The baby gurgled happily, causing ripples of colored light to dance across the walls. "Sometimes it takes the form of love." A soft alarm chimed through the palace. "Speaking of unexpected packages," Sarah sighed, "looks like our old friends the Draconids are back for their monthly attempt at intimidation." But there was no worry in her voice. Since Aurora's birth, the combined human-Hyraxian defense systems had become virtually impenetrable. Their daughter's unique abilities had led to breakthroughs in merging human intuition with Hyraxian technology in ways that left their enemies baffled. "Should we show our guests how we handle unwanted visitors these days?" Zarek asked, his skin patterns showing anticipation. Sarah grinned. "Aurora does love her light shows." They moved to the palace's command center, Aurora still in Sarah's arms. The baby watched with fascination as holographic displays showed the approaching Draconid ships. But instead of fear, her emotional projection through the crystal systems was one of pure joy. Initiating the Aurora Protocol, a Hyraxian officer announced. The city's defensive systems activated, but not with the harsh efficiency of traditional weapons. Instead, waves of crystalline energy pulsed outward in patterns that matched Aurora's emotional state. The effect on the Draconid ships was immediate. Their rigid computer systems, unable to process or counter such organic, emotionally driven defense patterns, began shutting down. "I almost feel sorry for them," Sarah mused as the Draconid fleet retreated once again. "They keep trying to fight with logic and force against something they don't understand. The power of emotional connection." "A lesson many of us had to learn," Cathara admitted, watching her granddaughter with all 4 eyes softening. "Sometimes the greatest strength comes from what others see as weakness." Later that evening, after the Earth delegation had departed and Aurora was asleep again, Sarah and Zarek stood on their favorite balcony watching the twin suns set. His skin patterns merged with the colors of her pendant in a dance of shared emotion that still took her breath away. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. "Taking that diplomatic mission, changing both our worlds so dramatically." Sarah leaned into his embrace, watching the city below where humans and Hyraxians now lived and worked together in harmony. "Not for a second, although I do think we should update the diplomatic training manual. Warning: may result in marriage to alien royalty and birth of galaxy-changing baby." Zarek's skin rippled with laughter, a display that would have been shocking 2 years ago, but was now commonplace among his people. "I love you, my emotionally unpredictable human." "And I love you, my colorfully expressive alien," Sarah replied, touching her pendant. It pulsed with a depth of feeling that needed no words in any language. In the nursery below, Aurora dreamed infant dreams of a future where love knew no boundaries, biological, cultural, or spatial. Her very existence was proof that the universe's greatest miracles often came from its most unexpected unions. And in the vast expanse of space, word spread of the child who bridged worlds with pure emotion. and of the human and Syrexian who dared to love beyond the stars. Their story became legend, taught to children on 1,000 worlds as proof that sometimes the bravest act was simply opening one's heart to new possibilities.